Hello, I'm John Kelley, and I'll be reviewing a topic which I have considerable passion relating to employee motivation and employee empowerment, which I'm going to call total employee empowerment, breaking down the bureaucracy. I'm deeply captivated by this concept since I work in a heavily layered organization that tends to stifle creativity and innovation in lieu of focusing solely on process and compliance. And that's not necessarily a dig or to say that it's my organization's fault, but for external reasons, it's sort of mapped out that way. And here's why. The concept of employee empowerment is somewhat difficult to foster within my organization, since our business is heavily regulated and adds a number of bureaucratic layers to align itself to compliance measures with government agencies such as the EPA, the FRA, the OIG, the DOT, FDA, USDA, NTSB, the US Congress, and a whole bunch of individual state agencies. So, in no fault of their own, our organization is the way it is. But to combat that, there are a few others in my organization that are like-minded to myself, who seek to play the antagonist to tear down the bureaucratic senselessness in order to promote progress. So, with this established topic in mind, and given my career history, I knew exactly where I wanted to go in presenting an article. One of my personal business professional heroes is Gary Hamel. And through research and analysis, he's led a personal journey in identifying organizations which exhibit groundbreaking or unique hierarchical business models. He is a professor of policy management and business, and many people like myself associate him more with being the originator of the concept which we call core competencies. And many of you probably have core competencies established in your workplace as a centerpiece for goal alignment. And this was actually the way I was first introduced to his work because my specific work location uses unique core competencies that are tailored to our organization. And I set pretty much every task against those elements before I venture into a project. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it's sort of a message that's really underlining in relation to the article that I'm about to introduce, because it focuses on specific skills or techniques that really add to the value of people or organizations. So if you dabble into Hamel's work even more, you'll see this very common theme with organizations and individuals, and how he outlines the perils of adding so many layers into management. So as you see, I'm already a little bit obsessed with Hamel. I do have one of his books that I'm picturing here, but I haven't got to it yet. I'm hoping to find some personal time, or either that or absorb the knowledge through osmosis. Most of my previous research on Hamel's been light, related with textbook work and reading articles in HBR, which is fairly common for him. I will say that it's nearly impossible to search for bureaucracy or empowerment in HBR or even the internet in general, and not getting hits for his work. When I saw the title of the 2011 article, "First, let's fire all the managers," it resonated with me so much that I didn't even care what the article was specifically about in relation to empowerment. I just knew that it was going to be an extremist standpoint on breaking down the bureaucracy and lending empowerment to employees. And as expected, there were heaps of material which lent that message of giving employees the freedom to break through the red tape. Hamel does this through focusing on a singular company, which is called the Morning Star Company, and it produces tomato products and services. After reading through their article and exploring other summaries about them, I can clearly visualize their system as a place that empowers employees to empower each other, allow employees to start the process on their own to find innovation, and then lead the change on delivering operational success. And finally, taking a moment to look inside oneself to find ways to engage in self-improvement. So here we are at Morningstar, not to be confused with the vegan brand that produces frozen product. This Morningstar is actually a tomato product producer, making items like crushed or diced tomatoes and tomato paste, organic tomato paste. I'm not sure if it can be classified as natural. Perhaps they're still waiting for their certification from Burt's Bees. At any rate, on the surface, they appear to be just like any other product farming or food product manufacturer that's on the market. What really makes the organization unique is their lack of management. That's right, they have literally zero managers. And this is just a really tough concept to grasp, but indeed there is no managers in this company. I think it took a minute for me to settle in, but take a minute and just imagine, and I can't even do this, what your own organization would look like if there were no managers. So consider if you had no employees that reported to you, or no bosses that you had to report to. You just simply worked with the people you worked with, and everybody came together as a collective group, more or less. And I think it's pretty easy to imagine that concept and everything just spiraling out of control and headed into chaos pretty quick. So you might even think that everyone would just go on and do whatever they want and hope to collect a paycheck at the end of the week. So let's give that concept a thought. Let's consider like the implications of somebody not pulling their fair share in this sort of managerless world. And we'll start off with an example of we'll call this guy that's taking a nap here Billy, and he figures out, hey, no one's looking. Why don't I just hang out on the pavement or take a nap somewhere and in the break room, whatever, and until the end of the day, and I'll just collect the paycheck, since there's no managers watching. Well, the reality of this situation, that if it happened at Morningstar, Billy wouldn't last long. See, the methodology at the company empowers its employees to lead the organization and actually do the management laterally. So when somebody like Billy's not doing his fair share and there's a problem, it's up to the collective employees to go and fix it. And other employees are, of course, forced to pick up the burden of his incomplete work, which would probably make them a little bit concerned about Billy's commitment to his job. This sort of concern might grow into some sort of one-on-one conversations, saying, hey, what's going on here? And an employee might approach him to question him or talk about his lack of participation in the workplace. And it's not just individuals that do that. In this sort of organization, they might collectively, come together and have these sort of performance conversations as a group and say, what is going on here? And if Billy is genuinely a lazy person and really has nothing to contribute, several employees might form a committee to eventually have Billy removed. The article at hand indicates that this sort of pure management style leaves no room for employees to be slackers, and it's also found great success in this peer level accountability. Um, when employees do manage employees, the feedback from other employees, it has to be valuable. So in these situations, it takes someone with extreme courage to step up and start having those conversations. Luckily, Morningstar doesn't send people into this unusual work structure unprepared. There are training programs which stress that peer regulation, it won't be able to function without determined colleagues who can step up. So, besides peer management, what else are employees responsible for at Morningstar? Again, it's tough to imagine, but they're responsible for pretty much everything. Every employee is responsible for planning work, scheduling, performance reviews, establishing salaries, creating staffing levels, and even hiring and firing. Um, Now, wait a second. There is a lot of legal stuff involved with hiring and firing. So there is some fine print here. There are key individuals in the organization at Morningstar that have titles which are qualified to review things like employee engagements or have specialized in talents such as HR representatives and accountants or corporate lawyers. However, the art of interviewing itself and hiring is truly up to the individual, and interview panels are often commenced directly by frontline employees. So, without managers, there is this removal of all these hierarchical layers. And in many of our organizations, it's multiple stacks of hierarchical layers. You know, between your most frontline employee and all the way up to the CEO of the company. There could be many stages, and in a lot of these highly structured hierarchical organizations, you have managers managing managers managing managers, and in a separate article, Hamill suggests building a ratio of total managers to frontliners. So, for example, in an ideal organization, one manager for 20 employees would be represented as 1:20, and this is what he marks as a good place for an organization to be. This is a very forward-thinking organization. Anything less than 20 tends to lead towards bureaucracy. Anything more than 20 leans towards adhocracy, a more self-governing type of organization, much like Morningstar that we see here. He does say most corporations are around 1 to 10. So the typical organization is one manager to every 10 employees. And he even expands on the typical organization, and does notate that in many of these organizations where it is a 1 to 10 ratio, the salaries are broken up directly evenly, where the one gets 50% of the salary, and then the remaining other 50% of salaries is broken up against 10 different people. My organization, I am going to throw up here, because I do recognize that it is highly bureaucratic, and we do have a severely bloated, management-heavy organization. I think I remember about halfway through my first year of working, I remember I had a manager literally watching me work, telling me what to do while I was doing it. And at the time, I could see that it was odd, but nowadays, after a decade, I'm somewhat numb to visualizing these sort of oddities, because our organization tends to breed this type of mentality. So in bloated situations and bloated organizations like my own, employees need to get this proverbial bathroom pass in order to do anything. And this supports this sort of learned helplessness where employees believe that change initiative can only start at the top and they can do absolutely nothing to help the company improve. So going back to Morningstar, where there is no top person and someone sees there's an opportunity for innovation, it's the employee's responsibility to initiate that. So here we'll take Karen. Karen's super excited today because she's the IT guru, and she just found this brand new idea to innovate the company, and she needs a heap full of money, let's say 500 grand, to go after this idea. Now Karen just can't show up to work and say, "Can I have a check for 500 grand?" The process at Morningstar is for Karen here. She has to seek the help and gain buy-in from other employees in order to get her idea through. At Morningstar, employees set aside time to consult and seek advice before making these sort of decisions. And this buy-in from groups of individuals provide real-time inspections into the potential results of a particular idea. And this gives it better judgment whether it worked for the organization or not, or even what it could do to improve. You get additional people at the table and they might grow on that one particular idea. And this judgment, this inspection, this look and insight into this one idea, it's coming from the individuals that are responsible for operating whatever this innovation is going to do. And it's not just some guy that's sitting in the office upstairs. And this is kind of related to a quote that I'll pull from one of my classmates here, Nikia McWilliams, when she was writing the blog of Why Visionary Leadership Fails. She said in her own words that strategic success is very possible when everyone is part of the plan. And that's just sort of what we're going towards here at Morningstar. So just like innovation, capital projects and expenses are driven by the Morningstar employees. So let's bring back Karen here. Karen's got her new IT program that's going to change the business all for the better, and she's already got the buy-in from a newly formed committee of employees that come from different areas of the company, such as IT, and maybe people on the line or maybe people in different departments here and there. Her fellow employees just love this new program and want to immediately start implementation. And they found a company that will do the installation on it. They'll do the training on it. They'll manage the implementation of the process. All that remains is the question now, does Karen just get a check for 500 grand to move this forward? And the answer is, if Karen worked at Morningstar, the answer would be yes. So it's yes with some limitations. First, it's got to fit the budget and be deemed higher priority than other capital projects that may be done. But ultimately, it's relatively an easy process. So good job, Karen. Employees at Morningstar are also empowered to make their own business purchases as well, which is really, really different from the world in which we live in. So whether it's like office supplies or vets or maybe a replacement part, employees are free to make these sort of purchases just as long as it stays within their peer design budgets. And this removes the restricted and slow approval process that many of us endure in the corporate world. So another one of the common themes over there at Morningstar is empowering individuals to seize opportunities to self-improve. So at this point, you may be asking yourself, if there's no managers and there's only peer-reviewed conversations, how exactly does salary work? Well, at Morningstar, compensation is an open, transparent conversation. Employees rate each other on their individual contributions. And since there is no hierarchy, employees just don't compete for promotions, but instead compete in the way in which they add value to the company. So salaries are then related to lead contributions, and they have this very intricate point system, if you will, that certain employees can rate other employees in the workplace to give them additional boost in their performance rating. And I won't go into all the specific details, but it just promotes this sort of visibility of who's contributing what. So in these sort of places in this mindset, it's really the skills that take the cake in this organization. So remember too, you also have to have buy-in from other members to get your financing or capital or create change. So if you don't have that, then you have to be just a really hard worker. But even then, there's this must-have of being recognized, and it sort of forces everyone into being a leader simultaneously. It's leaders leading leaders, leading leaders, and that's just great. I will pull from another student's leadership blog here, and this one is from Nicholas Pearson on his blog about why so many lousy leaders. And he says that people often focus on the title, salary, or a great idea they have to achieve, but fail to realize that those skills are needed to have people want to follow you and stay long term. And that's exactly what we're looking for here. And that couldn't be more true within this organization. So in most organizations, the best jobs usually go to the most politically engaged rather than the person that's most proficient or competent. And when job titles are taken away, there's less focus on politicking and more focus on developing one's skills to get that added contribution that we were just talking about. Another common theme at Morningstar is to get involved where you think you can add value. This allows openness to not force people into specific work boxes, and allows the engagement of learning and differing perspectives from someone who may be in a whole different work area. And it might also move people into the right function too. You know, that's an open opportunity to move out of your box of what you're currently doing. And if you have something to contribute in another area, you just might find yourself working in a different area of that organization. So, you know, let's say Karen is thriving in her role, but, you know, Billy may not be in the right function. And given the opportunity, you know, Billy could potentially matriculate out of his doc receiving job into a role as the corporate party planner. Another quote that I picked up from one of my classmates here is from Joe Godinez, and his blog post on how to stop looking at work as just a paycheck. I mean, it applies to my material here. And he says, instead of consistently focusing on weaknesses and what we're doing wrong, we should be further harnessing both the hidden and obvious strengths that we discover. And that's certainly an empowering thing to say, and would definitely apply in Morningstar's business model. The last thing I wanted to share here is stepping outside of this article. Um, I did find another article called um, "Calculating Your um, Bureaucracy Mass Index" or BMI, and it's another Harvard Business Review article that Hamill wrote, um, and it stands as less as an article and more as an assessment, and it's called "Do you know how bureaucratic your organization is?" And it could actually stand as a companion to many of his articles, including the one that I'm reporting on here, because um, it has the same themes that really stand out, where it's identified that bureaucracies actively disempower organizations and place such significant constraint on progress. Um, the assessment provides in the form of 26 multiple choice questions that are targeted at you, the individual, to talk about your organization. And it really gets you thinking about your own organization in an interactive way. Um, I'll post a link here um, so that you can go to the HBR article and test your own organization's bureaucratic level. Unsurprisingly, this is me on the left here. Um, when I took the test, it's getting close to breaking the needle there. So I think the next level up was in heightened bureaucracy is the DMV or something along those lines. Well, thank you so much for watching the entirety of my presentation, and I look forward to listening and reading through everybody else's.